Okay, so welcome to our second discussion. We're into week 2. I posted an agenda and announcements. My thinking for today was to take some time to sort of check in with y'all. We kind of began doing that already. And then we'll play around with Padlet. This is my first time using Padlet in a Zoom, like live with everyone. So I tried to set us up as best as possible, but it may not be perfect, but we're gonna try it out. We're trying technology, probably something that we're gonna have to do in the fall as well, depending on how things go. We're probably all gonna be in some type of hybrid model, if not completely online, I think. And then we'll talk about this text. We'll do some breakout rooms. I'll have to assign folks, so we'll probably take a little break where I put you in these breakout rooms. And then we'll talk specifically about the mission, vision, and principles component. I have a PowerPoint. I've looked at all your questions, and I've tried to, I have created a sort of a document that aligns the work that we'll be doing, gives some more specific information about this first component of your project. So it's very responsive to where we are and where we need to be in the course. So questions that folks have posed either to me via email or in virtual office hours are all on spot on. Nobody's behind. We're all in good place. And this is the appropriate time to begin to sort of move forward. So, so in terms of check-in, I wanted to give everybody like a minute to share how they're doing with the material. If you want to pose a question, I'm kind of can use this as use our chat. This should work for everyone. I'll try to document in our chat what the questions are so everyone can see them. And I'm using the chat. Have you all used a parking lot before in your classroom? In your classrooms? Okay, so who's, I see some heads shaking. Jessica, what's a parking lot?
It's kind of just a place where you can dump any thought. Like I use it as like a place where they can dump like thoughts, feelings, questions, reactions, and then it kind of, if there's like a lull in a discussion, we can head there and use it to kind of bring us back on to like whatever we need to discuss, or it's a way to kind of, for me to be checking to make sure that like everything's understanding or everyone's understanding the content.
Yes, exactly. So I often use the parking lot for questions. And I'm seeing here that still, okay, I think I fixed it. Everyone publicly and privately. Somebody try to send everyone a chat, just one person. Ah, it's working? Okay, good. So I will copy down, I will put in questions that folks have to ask. We're using our chat function like the parking lot. So I want to check in how you're doing with the material and a question that you have, and then we'll have our running record here. And then you can also take the chat questions with you before you leave. So we could start anywhere. So how's it going? And a question. So y'all can tell me verbally. You don't have to, I'll write down the questions.
Hi, I think after meeting with you, I feel a lot better with the assignment at hand. I think I was looking too much in the macro. I need to look more micro. So I think I'm going to deal with diversity in English language arts or in the English department to diversify the curriculum and enhance the ability for students to be interested in literature. I'm finding even by the time that I was observing, if students are forced to read the Crucible verbatim, they're not necessarily buying into it. So if we could bring more diversity into our authors, into our literature, into the historical side of things, as well as far as, early American documents that we have the students, that we teach the students to analyze, I think that would be wonderful right now, especially for what's going on in this current environment. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Okay. So I'll just call on the next person.
Jessica.
So I am really enjoying the way that Kim writes this book. I feel like it's just like him talking and having a conversation, and I'm like, yeah, I get that, or like, yeah, like, or I see that in my own school or my own district. So I'm really enjoying that. But my one question that I have is when I'm looking at, and I know we were here last week and we were discussing like, and I had asked the question last week, like, what constitutes our week per se, like, and we kind of were like, oh, it's working Monday through Sunday or whatever. But when I look at week 2 and week 3, so this week, this Sunday, the context and the analysis, the context and the analysis are both due. But then when I look into week 3, that's really when we're looking at context, and it says there like draft context and draft analysis. So I was just kind of making sure that yes, that stuff is still, this Sunday is the due date, and then we're going to work more with that, I guess.
I actually made a change to give extra time. It's reflected in the PowerPoint, I think, but not in, I don't know if I actually posted it on D2L yet. I just can't remember, but I did move some stuff around.
Okay.
So like, because of our summer schedule, we have to sort of make it fit the best way possible, but I dialed it back in terms of what's due. So I'll show you in a second, June 19th is just going to be one thing due, not two. So I'll share that in a minute. Great question.
Thank you.
Yep. Call the next person.
Dave. Hi, Dave. Dave and I work at the same school.
Nice.
So I agree with what Jess said about like how easy the read is. I think he communicates, his thoughts very clearly, and he uses good analogies in the discussion, and you could really relate to, a lot of things that he says that you hear other staff members say and stuff like that. The one analogy about like the restaurant cleaning compared to like the planned versus unplanned observations and how restaurants do it versus planned versus unplanned cleaning, like it made a lot of sense. It's very clear, and it just seems like the content is a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be based on the way that he writes it. But I emailed you about questions. I have an instructional master's from Kutztown, instructional technology master's from Kutztown.
Yeah, we talked, right?
So I wanted to do my plan or make my reform plan that has more aligned to technology, but like kind of Pat said, I have a big macro view right now. I should probably kind of hone in on something more specific. But the question that I asked you that we talked about in a little bit more detail was, what type of data should we be looking for, like qualitative data versus quantitative data and things like that?
And I got you. We're going to talk about that today. What type of data should we be looking for? Yep, I have an answer for that. Okay, call the next person.
All right, I'll call on Courtney.
All right, hi, David, good to see you. Hi, everyone. Dave and I used to be housemates and coworkers as well, so it's good to see him. But anyway, so we're starting out with what we're thinking of the material. I have really jumped ahead in the book, and I have to say that it's a smooth read. which I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm always a little bit nervous when I start reading the first couple pages, but it's very concrete. I am a little bit interested in the fact that, you know, this is one person's experience, and though he does, which I just learned he's a he, but anyway, he does lay out other people's views and experiences as well, but it is very specific, and his first two chapters do start out not negative, but he definitely sees a lot of flaws in his experience as both a teacher and principal. And I'm wondering, like, when the book starts to maybe see some more successes. So that's kind of my experience right now with the material in the book. As far as questions go, I think my question with the learning objectives for this week, with the 3 to 5 instructional supervisory principles, I'm wondering, you know, I had to come up with a vision during summer session 1 about my, like, being a leader and as an administrator. I'm wondering what the differences are in my vision as a supervisor, what these principles, what are some ideas and things, and I know our readings will show us some of that, but I'm just wondering what the difference between the leadership versus supervisory is.
Okay.
It says instructional supervisory principles. Identify 3 to 5 of them.
Right.
And yeah, I guess I'm just interested in some more examples of that, but I know that'll probably happen during the readings, which you had posted.
Yeah, so I can just jump in and answer that really quick. Those are in the reading for discussion board.
Yes.
All of those articles have the principles in there.
Lovely.
So, yeah. So once everybody, this cat is out of control. Once everyone posts and finishes that, then I'll make them available, the other discussions available to the other groups.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, and if there's work that you've done, okay, now this is ridiculous. Are you going to sit down or are you going to go on the floor? If you've taken stuff from other classes, stop. Then you should definitely, if something makes sense. So instructional leader, supervisor, those are interchangeable.
Sure.
So if there's material that you've taken from another course, then it should be applicable there.
Okay, great.
Here as well. But the slide that I'll share with y'all should clarify some things about that too. Okay, call on the next person.
John, I just had class with you earlier.
Well, hello, everybody. I made my way through the reading without too much difficulty. I agree that the text was an easy read, like the textbook. However, one of the first things that caught my eye was like, I don't know how to say this, but it was like a what should you do when you're principal? It almost said like eliminate staff, like, you know, pick out the people who are ineffective and get rid of those people. As someone who was like the vice president of my union for a long period of time, I've been on the opposite side of supervision for a while. So I don't know. It's interesting for me to read those documents and process it from a different viewpoint or a different perspective. I could tell you before class today, I had a good couple hours to sit down and reread through some of the articles about budgeting. One of those I found much more challenging than the other, but I got through everything and I feel a lot better about where I'm headed in this course now that I found everything and I'm starting to make my way along. So that's really it.
Okay, call the next person. Thank you.
Let's see. Did Katie go?
Did you say Katie? I just want to make
Katie.
Okay. No, I didn't go yet. I had the same thoughts on the reading as pretty much everybody else has. I'm just trying to zero in on what policy I want to really dive deep with. I was able to actually find a lot of policies through my district website, but they're very brief. So I'm not really sure if I'm looking at the right thing. I'm an elementary reading specialist, so I'm trying to find something that interests me, and there's no type of literacy policy or anything. And I do have a director of curriculum through my district. I'm just not sure what to ask her for if I'm looking for something more literacy oriented. I don't know if anybody has any ideas.
Okay, I'm gonna answer that.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Call the next person. Thank you.
Oh, sure. We'll go across. Andrew, I don't think you went yet.
No, I haven't gone. Yeah, I definitely enjoy the ease of this, like you guys said. Mainly I've enjoyed like the problem and solution type of mentality that he really takes as he's writing this. I mean, so many times it's like you're reading something and like, this is what it should look like, or this is what works, but like, how do you get there? And it's like seeing him go through like, well, I tried this and that failed. So I tried this and that didn't work for this reason. And it's like, I work in the Reading School District, and so many of these readings are like, yep, this is 100% my school. This is exactly what happens every year, every day. And I don't have too much experience working in like suburban or urban school districts, but like, in the city, it's like, yeah, you definitely see like the teachers that shouldn't be teaching. They wear a suit and tie on the day they're being observed. The principal kind of knows what is happening there, but like they never give them any constructive criticism or help. As far as and it's like it makes all of us look bad, and when you're on a team with those people, and I was on a team with a teacher that was that way, it's like their recommendation is reach out to me as a team leader, like, here, give them help, give them a hand, give them, well, what authority do I have to step in and be like, this is how you teach and this is what this should look like? And from the other standpoint, I definitely agree with a lot of what he's saying about needing to have more presence in the classroom, even though that becomes incredibly difficult when you're understaffed and whatnot. As far as I'm excited for this Zoom session, because as I'm reading these things, like my biggest problem is like, what should I be looking for these assignments? Like, what should I be trying to pick out and to highlight and to underline so I've had some problems there, like with the final assignment. Like I'm like thinking big picture, like what should this whole thing look like when it's done with? And I just don't have that imagination, I don't think, to be able to say like, all right, like this is like, I'm not there yet with the readings, but I'm getting there with the principles. Like I have some of that narrowed down. I definitely, as I'm reading this, like I'm rewriting the 7th grade social studies curriculum this summer. So it just makes sense as we're talking about supervision to focus on that, because for years in the Reading School District, we had no curriculum. There was no uniformity from one school to the next, from one classroom to the next. So like we're getting there, which probably sounds insane to some of you guys that teach in school districts where that's like been the way it has been forever. But like, so I'm like, as I'm writing and I'm like, I have to do this on curriculum somehow. I have to do this with supervision of it. I just can't see the big picture yet. So I'm excited to hear everything you have to say with the PowerPoint and whatnot.
All right, thank you.
All right, let's hear from Stephen at the beach.
All right. Yeah, I pretty much echo everyone's feeling on the reading. A lot of times with reading some educational texts I've seen in other master's courses, I've had problems reading it. But this one, it's like I said, the wording's very concrete. You can picture exactly what's going on in the classroom. I really enjoyed how he went through and like said about his stumbling blocks and how they got past that and reflected on things that he did poorly versus the things that worked well. And even though it worked well, it still took time to build. It's something that we as educators, sometimes we forget that it takes time to build things. It's not like flick on a light switch. But like stuff I'm struggling with as far as the questions is just where to start with the final assignment, because I'm not sure what I should be looking at as far as what things I should be working on to actually look at the data and other things like that. I guess as far as participants, gotta go through here. Megan, did you go yet?
I didn't, so now I will. So I feel pretty much the same about everybody with the readings. Like, I definitely have taken classes where like I have to reread a book multiple times to even like understand it. So I appreciate that these are a little bit more, I don't know, they're just, I guess, like more digestible, I guess is like a good way to put it. And I really liked the articles that were in this week, especially, I just thought that I'm an art teacher. So like none of the stuff that we talk about in grad school relates to me really at all. So it was kind of nice to like see some articles that talked about art education and what they're kind of doing for schools, because I don't think that comes up a whole lot. So I did really appreciate that. As far as like questions, I feel like I have a million questions. Like I'm taking grad classes right now. So I'm pretty overwhelmed. And I feel like I don't really know where to start with this either, kind of like what Stephen was just saying. Especially with like, what does that look like for me? Like I'm only going into my 3rd year and I'm an elementary art teacher in a new district. So I'm definitely lost, I guess is a good way to put it. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, but feeling good, you know? I guess I have to pick somebody. Okay. Go. Rebecca, did you go? Okay, you got it, girl.
Okay. So I really liked, and I just saw your like making sure that texts are accessible and relevant comment. I really appreciate that, like not everything is rainbows and unicorns in this process of reading this or text. I'm gonna say novel because it kind of reads like a novel. But I really like the transparency, and I really like that there was in those mini observations like consistent communication, because I feel like that's something that I'm really lacking right now with administration, and even before like COVID and everything else. Like I feel like I am not getting the amount of information I want to have, but I don't think they can give it to us right now. But last year we moved our school into a new building, and everything is very segmented. So 6th grade is all in one hallway at the very back of the school. 7th grade is by themselves. 8th grade's by themselves. So there's not as much communication and like community aspects to the school because everybody's so separated. So I feel like those mini observations were like a great thing that I was like, because I'm very hard on myself in general. I never think I'm doing as well as I could be. So that's something that it was kind of nice to see that, you know, principals and administrators are doing those kind of short things. Like I don't need somebody to come in my classroom for 45 minutes. I'm cool if they come in and just check in with me and do things like that. So that was really cool to see. And I really enjoyed getting that kind of perspective of, I don't want to see the whole shebang, the whole showbiz thing, lessons. I just want to see like what's going on like consistently throughout the whole year. I'm a very type A person, so this deconstructed syllabus has been kind of hard for me to be like, because I'm a very much like a checklist, like I make lists and I am like that person. So that's probably the thing that I've been struggling with. It's just making sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing when I'm supposed to do it. And I'm sure that we'll clarify those things, but I'm totally a checklist person. That is like my comfort zone. So not having the typical syllabus or whatever is just so different for me. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just like, that's not my experience, I guess. Like, I don't think it's ever been this way for a course that I've taken. So it's just different. Yep. Jessica's got it.
Myself a checklist, and at the top it says supervision finance, and yes,
I'll show you. I just put a comment in there. I'll just show you like a little bit of what my desk looks like. Right? And then I have a research project going on over here.
Right.
And then I'll actually walk you to the other part of my house. Y'all getting to know me very well.
Yeah, your cat and everything.
Get my cat. Yeah. So I'm going to jump in with that and say that absolutely checklists and lists and all those kinds of documents are important.
Yeah.
What I'm asking you all to do in this course is as leaders, you'll be making your own lists, right? You'll be having to determine and prioritize for yourself what that pathway looks like. So yes, this is different. That's the best way to describe it. So, and this is autonomous in that regard. So, but there's still guideposts, like you're not here alone. And
yeah, I'm not floating out to sea, just like confused.
and you all are all at the right place. Like if you're asking, I've taught classes where people are like, I know exactly what to do, and I have my end project, and I'm like, there's no way possible that you know that, because we haven't done the work yet. So you're all in the right place to have these kinds of questions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So somebody says that they made a checklist, that's fine. You know, you can make whatever calendar, whatever list, because there's some things that are going to be self-paced, but everything is in terms of due dates, you know, you're able to find in D2L, but I'll walk through some of this stuff, all of this stuff today. So,
okay. Johanna, I'll go with you since you're a fellow lister.
I love lists. They're awesome.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. For me, the last probably 3 years, I've been, I'm a high school teacher, by the way, and I've just been really passionate about diversity and equity, and just really helping all of my students. And I work in a suburban, mainly white district, and you would think why am I worrying about that? I don't have a diverse population, but the few students that we do have, I think it's very easy to feel like, I don't have that many, I don't have to worry about that, and then leave them behind. And I myself, having, being an immigrant and having been an English as a second language student, I understand just how important it is to care just about each and every one of the students, and make it equitable, and just having a passion for that. So I took the diversity class, and then I run a couple of sessions in my own high school, just intro stuff about diversity and equity to just get people started. So for me, school reform is a huge goal, and that's why I'm going with the supervisory certificate of curriculum and instruction, hoping that I can help teachers and just other educators to really bring about significant change. I thought I was gonna do that through research and being part of a think tank or something like that. That was my goal early on. And I'm kind of like that principal in chapter 1, just trying to think of ways to really affect some school reform. But my goodness, it's really difficult to try and think of the avenue to take for that. And the whole leadership thing, it's so easy to get lost in the budget, or in whatever policy, or are we going virtual or face to face. To really institute meaningful reform is kind of baffling to me. So I've enjoyed the material in this chapter a lot. Especially, I think what I'm leaning towards, if I'm able to do it, to incorporate in my project, is the whole thing about grading and mystery grading, and how much grading and assessment can affect equity and making learning equitable. And just the fact that it's just kind of crazy to me that even in my same department, we have two teachers teaching the same course, and we can literally choose to grade completely differently. And a student taking both courses will get a completely different grade in my course versus the other teacher's course. And I think that's ridiculous. Like, we're never going to achieve, equitable education without equal funding or equal grading practices and stuff like that.
All right, thank you. Who's left? Who's next?
I'll go. So as I'm sitting here listening to all of you say your piece, I'm really connecting to each and every one of you in something that you're saying. In the reading specifically, I work in Pottstown School District, generally an urban area, and I connected a lot with Kim's story about him as a teacher and himself as in a supervisory role. Just about how he understands that he's getting a lack of feedback. He understands that maybe he's not getting the help that he needs, and because of the things that are going on in the building, the crises that are happening around the building. And I feel that in my own role. Often it's looked down upon in the building to call because, there's so many other things going on that may take more importance at the time. And even sometimes a teacher would call and nobody would show. So I definitely connected with his stories about that in both roles, as a teacher and as a supervisor. And along with what everyone's saying, I am also writing curriculum this summer. I know a couple of you are also doing that. And that's where I want to go with my final project. What I'm struggling with, and I know I sent you an email a couple days ago, is how to take my idea and make it into policies that I can then trickle into other things and make my final project. So definitely just making that transition from my idea to how to make them into policies.
Okay. Is there anybody left?
Oh, Jennifer, go ahead.
Okay. So like everyone else said, yeah, the readings went fine. I thought what stuck out the most was that he pointed out that a lot of people don't use their evaluation feedback to really make changes in their classroom, and focusing more on school-wide initiatives or those planning periods or the team communities type of thing to make those improvements and get more frequent feedback is what I feel like is important. And learning about the different types of budgets and things was a good read as well, because I haven't seen any of my school's budget or anything. So I was kind of curious of what they kind of see as important or what they're putting their money towards. So I reached out to my supervisors. I didn't get too much yet, but maybe after I see the PowerPoint today and things, I can get a better idea of what exactly to ask them for some guidance. So I look forward to that. And then just Cameron, I think.
Yep, thanks, Jennifer. And my Zoom name is super misleading. This is our district Zoom account. My first name is Spencer, and it trips everybody. And it's the Zoom name does not help matters.
I think you can go in and change it, because I've changed mine.
I YouTubed it 8 times. I have to do. I guess I did it wrong.
It took a lot for me to change mine.
Okay. So yeah, that's on my list, my big list that I have. So yeah, I made a ton of connections to the first couple chapters. One thing I did write down that I thought might be unique, but it sounds everybody made the same connection. I appreciate his honesty and how he presents his challenges up front. And he included that excerpt of a letter that he received from someone that basically said, you just wasted a year of 25 students' lives. And I think I appreciate how vulnerable he is to point out and say, these are the mistakes I made. And here's how over 20 years, I kind of fixed some of those things. And he even says at the end of my career, I didn't get the school where I wanted it to be, which again, I really appreciated. So really enjoying this text, really enjoying our articles and the supplemental materials that are up there. The only question I have right now, I'm just looking for some affirmation that, and if you can yell at me if this is not okay, I was waiting to post my draft for my group until learning a little bit more and making sure I'm on the right track after tonight. So if you could just give me a thumbs up, that'll take a lot off my shoulders. If that's wrong, you can yell at me too. That's okay. So I just wanted to check.
You don't have,
But
so I'm not going to yell. That's
okay.
only for the cat and sometimes my now 13-year-old. So that space is sort of, if you've connected with a peer and you all are exchanging, so some groups have 4, some groups have 3. Yeah, 2 groups have 4 and then the rest, no, 3 groups have 4 and then the other groups have 3. You can decide on how you want to manage a space. So if you want to post, that's fine. It's completely a space where there's a work in progress. So I'll actually talk about the logistics. I'm wondering now, and everybody had a chance to share out, right? Okay. So I'm wondering now, I wanted us to get into this little Padlet. Let's do this real quick, and then I have your questions here. They aren't going anywhere. But I think the vocabulary will help us. Yeah, so let's do that. So did everyone see how to log in and how to find things? All right, so I'm gonna share, oh, people are posting already. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. And then we can all come to, can everybody see that? So this is some of the vocabulary that will help us to be able to discuss the work that we're engaging in. And you'll notice that these terms are also the terms that are in our learning objectives for the course. So we have one learning objective around fiscal resources. Another one discusses shared vision for learning. The text actually talks about high quality instruction, distributed leadership is discussed in the chapter as well. Your school management system, I found the management system for you all, but we'll see if other folks have found theirs. I know some people were asking about that. So what you can do, Rebecca started us off. Rebecca, where are you? Can you speak to how you got everyone started, and then everyone can begin to participate?
So I just logged in through the Microsoft. That's how I did it. So it was through my Kutztown thing. So I started with 2, and I didn't know if we should do them before or like during. So I kind of was like, I'll do a couple and then go from there. So a lot of mine are just personal experiences and things that I felt would be useful, even just to have a discussion about. So for the high quality instruction in my content area, I'm a language arts teacher and I teach 6th grade. So I started to talk about one of the lessons that I actually have other teachers and administrators and principals and whoever come in, and they are a part of a jury during my argumentative writing unit. And it kind of sparks the kids into getting ideas together and making an argument for something. It's not like the final thing, but it gets them excited and it gets them interested. And it's one of the things that I feel like a lot of people are becoming more involved with. And so that was one that I really liked. And then I just talked a little bit about the technology that my school uses. We're really fortunate that we have like one-to-one technology. And we use a lot of, we use Schoology. And we, in my own classroom, I use No Red Ink for grammar. I use Pear Deck and different things that I feel are useful for my students, but they are things that I think more people are using because of COVID and having to do things online. So I just kind of gave a couple of ideas of what I do and like what I think relate to these questions and things like that. So
that's perfect. So let's all try this out right now. There's some comments that are posted. Who's RNS Outdoors?
That's me. Sorry, I use my Google account and I
Oh,
left.
it's totally cool. So try to, no, it's totally fine. Let's try to, respond to someone else's comment. And also we have some that are open. Human capital, what is a steward, right? A steward is used in multiple contexts. If anyone knows what the school management system is, you can respond there. So really this is just, we're gonna try to make sure we can navigate a Padlet. And then obviously this is a tool that you can use, as Rebecca just stated, in your own classrooms when the semester begins again. So let's just try this out. I'm trying it alongside you. I know I'm giving some hearts to some comments. And I'm gonna answer this resource question here. I'm gonna stop sharing because this is bothering me how I look at it so y'all can see it.
Dr. Pabon, when
Yeah.
it comes to steward, are you asking for a general definition, or are you talking about like a building steward, like you?
Any definition of steward that you have. I mean, and so you can use other resources. You can look it up real quick. All right, so I just added another one. Are folks are able to navigate this okay? Oh, we're filling up, cool. There we go. Yes, fiscal resource Title I. Yes, Catherine and Patrick, stewards. What about school management? Do we get to distributed leadership? Yes. So Jessica, the COVID-19, so that's the policy. So I'll talk about that in the slide. There's different, policy doesn't always have to be like some fixed document that we imagine. It could be an interim policy, right, in response to a pandemic. This looks good. Okay, we got some experience. Did everyone get a chance to post something? Awesome, human capital. Okay, I'm gonna stop the share. So one of the important things, one of the reasons why we engage in the Padlet, and the Padlet, if you're still posting, that's fine. If you want to return to it, that's fine. Also, come back to your peers and look at some of those definitions. When we all know that in education there's so much jargon. So we want to make sure that we're on the same page and we have a shared understanding of the jargon that we're utilizing in this course, and particularly because it is embedded within our course learning objectives. So we use this Padlet just now to sort of clarify what we meant and to see some other examples from our peers, and also thinking about this as a tool that you can utilize. It doesn't have to be for vocabulary. It could be as an icebreaker at the beginning of a lesson, a virtual lesson that you're engaged in at the beginning of the semester. So we're thinking about the dual purposes. And then you all have access to the Padlet. I encourage you to start your own accounts. It might be something that you utilize in your sustainable development plan, right? As a tool for communication among teachers within that plan. So those are some reasons why this could be a valuable tool. Did anybody want to talk back to that or sort of add another perspective? Oh, I see some people. Okay. Because it feels like Facebook. Yes. Cool. Anybody else? All right, so I just put a note. We're still thinking about wait time, and wait time functions differently when we're in virtual space. Okay, so I'm gonna close the Padlet for now, but y'all can still be logged in. And let's get into it. Let's talk about, let me share again my screen and sort of go through our material for the day that is really to provide some logistics for you all. All right, so here we go. Can everybody see that okay? Okay, all right. So I think that this PowerPoint will sort of clarify some of the points that you've raised. I don't actually have, I don't think I'm able to actually see the chat right now while I'm talking. So if there's questions, I can't really do both. So if there's questions, you can log them in there, but I think I'm gonna address much of what folks have been asking. So the first question that I've gotten some emails about was like, okay, how do these sections align? So as I mentioned before, we have basically a standardized assessment for this course. This is one of the courses where data is collected as a part of our accreditation. So just like in a standardized assessment in your school. So it is necessary to have a program assignment that is standard across the years and included in a rubric. As the teacher of the instructor of the course, it's important for me to own the work that I'm doing, right? It has to make sense to me. In those ways, and furthermore, makes sense to this. It needs to make sense to me so that I can explain it to you. So there's some modifications that I made to the language and to the layout so that I could teach this in an effective way. So very just quickly, all I did here was sort of align the titles from the course with the titles that are in the program assignment or in the program rubric. So all I did was crosswalk these. So principles and vision, which is really the introduction to your project, same title. School context report is knowing and understanding your context. School policy analysis is read as school policies. I use the term school resource account. That's the same thing as consideration of needs. I like the term sustainable staff development plan. This is broken into two different sections in the rubric: development program and sustainability. So it is both of those things. Okay. So then another logistical piece was like thinking about the schedule. So I said that I did make an adjustment to this. So the principles and vision. Here's the thing. That's the thing that you all are working on. I think Cameron asked this question, like, is it okay if I post it, and where does this go? So I really I find it important and relevant that you're able to utilize the D2L as a space for you all to collaborate. That is also embedded in the learning objectives for this course, right? That's a part of distributed leadership. You're practicing that by working with your peers to discuss your mission and vision and the principles that undergird the mission and principles, the mission and vision. So I didn't put, there's no due date for the principles and vision, that component of your assignment that I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a few minutes. Because what I found in doing work like this, my draft, my introduction often changes based on the changes that I'm making in my draft. So if I'm writing a paper, or even some of the articles that I write, and I try to come up with this really tight, very sexy introduction section to a paper, it always falls flat because I end up writing something that is so far different after I get into the journey of writing that I have to come back and make these drastic revisions. So I don't want to get too wedded to like my introduction, because as I continue to read and write, then that's going to develop. So your first little piece of writing that you're doing is very fluid. So you should be going back to that as you work on your work on the remaining sections, because in my experience that can change. If you feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing here and this is going to stay this way, then you're welcome to just put that in the placeholder in D2L and finish it. But I would recommend being open to changes. So keeping that as a work in progress and keeping that as a collaborative work in progress so that you all continue to help each other and be accountable to that. There was a question that says, is the vision of the current school? Yes. So you're reading about principles in the module and you're doing some writing about that, about your reading. You only are responsible for the one article that's in your assigned section in order to complete your discussion board post, but you should be looking at those other articles as well. And so once everybody has finished their posting, I will open up the discussion board so that other groups can dip in and read the other responses about the other articles. But all of the articles, as you've noticed, are pretty brief and pretty clear. So that is that. The school context report, okay, so that is going to be due next Sunday. Make sure I get my days right, I believe. Yes. And I'll talk about that in further detail today. So my suggestion is, I'm saying a second draft. And so work with one of your partners or maybe two to work on writing this. To me, this is a soft request, because ultimately you're going to submit your final work, and it's kind of covered here because I have everybody's pictures. You're going to be submitting your final work on August 7th, which will include all of the final versions of your principal and vision statement, your school context report, your school policy analysis, your school resource. I'm asking you to work with your peers in drafting these sections and giving me a second draft. So whatever feedback I have for you, it should be on the minimal side, because you've had an opportunity to work with your peers and, clarify and make some improvements. So I pushed back your school policy analysis to be due on the 26th instead of having two things due on the 19th. So my goal here, so again, my ask is that this be a second draft that you submit to me. And then my goal is to turn it around, my feedback around to you quickly, so that you can incorporate it into your school policy analysis. Just briefly, your school policy analysis is going to be examining an existing policy in your school, and that should be relevant to the topic that you're creating a staff development plan about. So curriculum is a policy, for example. Your school resource account, I pushed that back, I believe, as well, to be due on August 2nd. Sorry about that. And then the final component of this project is your staff development plan. And you could be working on this throughout this time period. Some of y'all, I love to hear that some of y'all have read ahead in the Marshall text. That's awesome. You will need information from your about your school's context, about the policy, and about the resources to create your development plan. But maybe you don't have those things written out, and that's okay. But you have some ideas from this text to help you create your staff development plan, or for those other resources. And so guess what? You kind of do what I've done in this house, which is you have some running charts going, or some running Post-its going, or a running journal going with some ideas. You may decide to work with another member in the class on your development plan. Those are things that you have the autonomy to work on. So again, I just want to reinforce this idea. As school leaders, it's up to you to sort of make these kinds of decisions. And really, I'm trying to sort of function in this constructivist model as a facilitator. And obviously there's some stuff to teach, and I'm teaching today, for example, and last week. But you'll have to make some decisions on your own about how you're going to organize your work. I'm going to stop my share for a second. Okay, Patrick answered the question. Okay, what time functions? Wait time. Okay, wait time. All right, I'm looking at my own notes. So Patrick, you're good.
Yeah, makes sense now. Thank you.
Okay. The question, can we post our first draft in our group's discussion board? Yes, that's where you should be posting it. All right, is everybody with me so far? We good? We're good. Okay, keep going. Okay. All right, so principles and visions. Let's spend a little bit talking about that. So I thought I would provide some specific guidelines for the principles and vision piece. And I already said a little bit about this. So this section is ongoing and it's collaborative, and you'll do that via D2L. I won't grade that. I'll see it really at the end of the semester, at the end of the summer, along with the rest of your plan. It's a narrative. It's written in first person. So very similar to how Kim Marshall in that first chapter, and even a little bit in the introduction, wrote in such a way that, we could shake our heads to. I know that thinking about my schooling experience, it was very, very, my teaching experience, it was very, very similar to the circumstances that Kim entered into. And so if I were doing this project, this part of the assignment, I would try to make it plain, make it very clear, make it ambitious. We're thinking about, or I'm thinking that anywhere between 750, 1,000 words. Everyone always asks me for page numbers and word counts. So I thought I'd put some word counts on things. But this section should align with your existing school's mission statement. So you need to find what your mission statement is. Now I thought about this and I said, what if a school's mission statement is troubling, right? Or you super disagree with that mission statement? I think if you're in that situation, we should talk. I have a couple different solutions to that. But my first response would be to try to work with it as best you can. But if you still feel like, wow, this is so different from how I'm imagining the professional development plan that I'm going to create, then let's talk. Joanna, I see you. Give me a second. You should be referencing chapters 1 and 2 of the Marshall text for this section. And then the principles are stated in those articles from the module that you're in right now. You can also draw from other resources, but just make sure that you include a reference page. Okay, so one question was, someone raised their hand. Who was that? Joanna? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so that particular slide and the requirements are just about the first section, the mission and vision.
Yep.
Got it. Just wanted to make sure.
Yep. The other ones, some of them other ones are similar, but there's some adjustments. Should we discuss what our school's vision is specifically in our writing? Your school's mission statement. So what is your school's mission statement? And then this is going to be your vision, your principles, because now you're a school leader. So your school has an existing mission statement. Most schools do. You should be able to find it. And now you're on board. You're the new administrator in the school. You're the new staff developer in the school. And this is your part that aligns with your professional development plan, sustainable professional development plan. Okay, should we be discussing what our school's vision is writing? Yes. So the 750 words are the principles and then expanding upon them. 750 words is the entire section of this narrative piece of writing. So your principles and expanding upon them, yes. So you can actually take a look at the rubric as well, because, and that's under principles and visions in the rubric, and it says like basically exactly what belongs in that section. So let it flow. Like you could start your starter sentence. My school's mission is XYZ. My school's mission statement is XYZ. In this project, I strongly believe in principle 1, principle 2, principle 3. This section of my project, or in this section of my project, I explain what those principles are and suggest how they align with my staff development plan. If you go back to the module and all those readings, you'll see several different principles there. So who had the ethical? Which group had the ethical principles? What were some of the articles that you had? In your groups?
My group had the article, "What do you call people with visions?"
Okay. What was another one? Thanks,
Group
Jeff.
3 was the 7 principles of sustainable leadership.
There we go. Any other ones?
Mine is, I just had it up there. 10 principles of quality leadership.
Good.
That's
So
group 4.
you should be able to take, remember, this is like we're always building upon what we've already done. You should be able to take what you've done in discussion board in terms of talking about this text and transfer that right into your draft. So this isn't like a new piece of writing. You should be able to make some revisions to what you've already done. And just frame this in a first person. Instead of writing about what you've read, you're going to be taking ownership of the particular principles that you own, right? That make sense to you. We good? Courtney, does that answer your question? Okay, Courtney says yes. All right, so I'm going to keep going. Okay, so this is the school context report. That's the next section. So I made a little diagram because I like lists just like you all. I like charts, I like tables, and sometimes I have to see things, big. So forgive me, but this is how I envision that section. I see the school context report as, and this is also stated in the rubric as well from the program rubric, as having 4 parts. You have one part, which is the qualitative description of the school. So qualitative. Sorry about that. I'm going to come back to defining what qualitative is. There we go. That section should be about 500 words. Those are your observations, your discussions with leadership. Some people said that they've been emailing or they've had conversations. I wrote the term interviews. That means that could be photos, that could be news article excerpts. Tell me about your school, just like Kim Marshall does, right? Describe to me Mather Elementary School. Excuse me, describe for your audience Mather Elementary School or XYZ Elementary School. I don't know what that school's about. So share that with your audience. Section 2 should be a report of quantitative data. So I asked folks have been asking me, like, where do I find my school's data? So again, going back to the Marshall text, I believe this is in the introduction. And then we get to some more data. It's not necessarily in chart form, still in chapter 2. So how is your school doing relative to the specific topics? So Patrick wants to write about literacy. So what do we know about students' English language arts scores? What do we know about their reading performance and their writing performance in that particular school? So PIMS is the place where all of the school data is hiding. Remember when I said, oh my gosh, it's not publicly available? Yes, it is. It's just like nested within PDE website. So I had to track it down. So if you have access to your school's data, the pertinent data that you need, you're not reporting all data. You're reporting the data that's relevant to the area of focus in your project. You should be able to find some information through PIMS. And so when you're discussing it, you can include charts if you want to, and those should be charts that you create. Or you can just be stating like, here's the attendance data. Here's the number of teachers who have 5 years plus experience. Here is the suspension rate, right? Some of you all asked about projects that are associated with in-school suspension. So what I'm suggesting here is that the data that you provide, the quantitative data that you're using, that you're working with, again, is relevant to your project. It's not just any data. Then you're thinking about your analysis of areas of strength and areas needing improvement. So let's go back to your qualitative description of the school. In your observations, like what are some of the strengths in the school? When you talk to other teachers or in your conversation, someone at the beginning of our session today said, wait a minute, I'm not even able to get the data that I need. Like that question is not being answered. Maybe there's an issue around transparency, right? And how teachers are provided with the data that they need. And maybe that's the focus of your project. Or you look at your quantitative data and see that, you know, there's a real issue with truancy. So all of these sections should speak to your discussion about your area of focus and the goals for your staff development program. These components should be nested in what you can do in the class, how you might support teachers in the classroom. So remember, we're not thinking about how to fix the entire school. Very similar to how Marshall explains, we're focusing our work on how we might best support teachers relative to what we know qualitatively, relative to what we know quantitatively, relative to our analysis of those areas of strength and those areas needing development, to hone in on the plan that we're going to focus on. So this is sort of your introduction to your staff development plan. I'm going to stop my share. Of course, the slides are going on D2L. Yes, of course, y'all. You're very welcome, Patrick. See, now look, I was over here when I was looking at this, I was like, oh my God, they're gonna be so mad because this doesn't make sense. So does this make sense? Okay. All in due time. All right.
Dr. Pavone, can I ask you?
What's up? Sure.
So regarding when we bring up the staff development program, because this section does deal so heavily with that, are we introducing that topic before this? Like that's still in the section before this?
What do you mean? What's still in the section?
So you said this has to deal the school context report deals with the area of focus and goals for our staff development. In order to make sense to the reader what those goals and staff development are, do we first state that before going into the school context report? For instance, I'm doing mine on restorative practices. If I'm doing things like in section 3, where I'm analyzing strengths and areas needing development, or in section 2, I'm reporting discipline stats and things like that, am I trying to contextualize that with, so that they know that the reason I'm going into those stats specifically is because I'm going to be talking about restorative practices?
Yeah, I mean, you could have an introduction at the beginning that explains all those things. I think that that's a decision
Okay.
that you need to make as a writer,
Okay.
like how that makes sense to you.
Okay.
Yeah. But basically, those sections are going to lead into your what you're saying is your area of focus and your goals. So one thing I didn't show actually is this last piece. So your last section is like probably 750 words. It's also first person. You're aligning your qual and quant data. I said this. And we're thinking about specific and SMART goals. I have a handout for you all about SMART goals as well. And that the goals that you're creating should be aligned with best practices. But do you notice how like some of this work is going to be iterative? So you'll have this work done, but as you do the next section, which is looking at policy, you might come to find out that you need to make some adjustments in this section. And then you might also come to find out that you need to make some adjustments in your mission and vision, principles and vision section at the beginning. Okay. So I have information on school policy, but I'm going to actually stop there because I'm going to put the entire slide on D2L for you all. And I'm just looking at time and trying to be respectful of everybody's time. I think it makes sense to kind of just sit there with where we are and give some opportunity for you all to talk to each other about what we have. So I'm going to put you in breakout rooms and I'm going to upload to D2L my slide at the same time. So I made these breakout rooms. I'm just going to assign randomly. So you should be being invited to join. No, okay. Oh, here we go. All right. Assign to breakout room 2. Okay. Assign to breakout room 2. All right. You didn't get an invite? Oh, there you go.